An anthology on the bad, the short-lived, and the forgotten shows and events in television history. You are listening to It Was a Thing on TV.
Now, Shotty LaRue from my son's favorite show on CBS, which was just picked up again, Frank's Place.
Episode 574, submission number 50,000. If you missed the end of the previous episode, you know why it's submission number 50,000. The New Perry Mason. The New Perry Mason aired on CBS from September 16th of 1973 to January 27th of 1974 for 15 episodes. History of television, gentlemen, I don't think we can think of a bigger name when it comes to legal dramas than Perry Mason, and I know what you're going to say. What about Matlock? Fair, but at least Perry Mason was maybe not the original, but the best legal drama in the black and white era. The character of Perry Mason in the, excuse the phrase here, Perry Mason universe was created by Earl Stanley Gardner. And the original series ran for 9 seasons. We may remember Perry Mason, the OG version, if you will, as being led by Raymond Burr, one of the absolute greatest actors, maybe in television history. But in addition to Raymond Burr, we did have some other characters, most of whom actually made the transition to the new series. One thing that didn't make the transition to this new series is the people who played them. You had Della Street, Perry Mason's secretary, originally played by Barbara Hale. You also had Paul Drake, who was a detective and worked with Perry Mason often. You had Hamilton Berger, who was the district attorney. And you had Lieutenant Arthur Tragg, who was a police homicide detective who appeared throughout the series. Those 5 characters, they made the move to this 1970s version. There's not much I could say about plot, because if you've seen the original Perry Mason, that's the plot. You have 1 case per week. Perry Mason does his usual detective work, or lawyer work, if you will, and invariably, outside of the last episode on the original series, Perry Mason wins. With that said, we'll just hop right into the cast, because again, there's just not much of a plot to set up here. Playing the new Perry Mason is Monty Markham, and we have talked about Monty Markham in the past. Monty Markham is still with us, believe it or not. He is 90 years old. I don't know where we specifically talked about him, but he played Captain Don Thorpe on Baywatch 1989 to 1992. And he's still active nowadays at age 89, 90. His last role was in something called Rock and Doris Try to Write a Movie. He played a safari guide. Needless to say, he has had a very long career. Playing Della Street in this version is Sharon Acker. Sharon Acker just passed away about 2.5 years ago. Maybe what I would guess she's best known for besides this is she was in 62 episodes of Texas, the daytime sort of takeoff, the soap opera version of Dallas, because Dallas is in Texas. Playing Paul Drake, the detective. He's played by Albert Stratton. Albert Stratton did a little bit of everything. He passed away about 14 years ago. Among his things he's known for, take this with a grain of salt, he was also on Baywatch. He played Robert McLean on 3 episodes of Baywatch. He was also on 63 episodes of All My Children between 1989 and 1990 as Eric Kane. So obviously some relation to Erica Kane. Don't know if it's a brother or couldn't be a father. No, it couldn't be a father at that age. I'm guessing it's a brother or a cousin or someone of a similar age to Susan Lucci. Playing Hamilton Berger is Harry Guardino. Harry Guardino, again, not known necessarily for one role. He did play the role of Bressler in Dirty Harry. That was a big movie about 2 years before the new Perry Mason. And then Lieutenant Arthur Tragg is played by Dane Clark. Dane Clark is old school Hollywood. He goes all the way back. Did many movies. In fact, his career started back in 1938. But again, it does not look like he had one defining role where you could say, hey, I remember him from this series or this movie role. He's just somebody who acted for quite some time. Till 1989, when he was on an episode of Murder, She Wrote. Now that we have the new cast out of the way, how about we look at some new episodes? Or maybe I should say presumably new episodes. I think they're all new, but you never know. Again, maybe they got some storylines from the Earl Stanley Gardner library or something like that. We have 15 episodes. We will start off with episode 1, which is titled The Case of the Horoscope Homicide. Perry Mason takes the case of a wife accused of killing her astrology expert husband. Complicating matters is the fact that Perry is also a witness for the prosecution. We have, oh my gosh, I see 4 names in this episode, including at least one recurring character. Playing Milo Vernon is Sorrel Book, Boss Hogg himself.
Ooh, Boss Hogg.
And then playing Junius is somebody we've talked about for sure, Peter Mark Richmond, Andrew Laird from Dynasty. I think this is like summoning Kiesler right now to come here and talk about Dynasty.
Heath was asleep.
Oh,
Well, no, who cares? Wake her up. Get her in here. Let's talk about Dynasty. No. Don't need a angry Kiesler on our hands. Playing Anthony Brewer in this episode is Robert Mandan from Soap and Three's a Crowd and Zapped. Wait. And Zapped. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hold on. Wait, Greg, I got to say it properly. Oscar Award winning movie Zapped.
that's right. It was an Oscar winner.
And we're going to get angry letters again. Why are you saying this about Zapped? Zapped was a crappy movie.
I wish I took a snapshot of the tweet in reply to that.
Oh, well, what are you going to do? And then the last person, and this is a recurring role. This person's only in 4 episodes, but playing Gertrude Lade. You may not know who she is necessarily in 1973. Give her about a year or even less, you'll know who she is. Brent Summers, Mrs. Jack Klugman, and Match Game favorite. I think at this time she would have been playing Jack Klugman's ex-wife on The Odd Couple before getting on the new Perry Mason. Episode 2 is called The Case of the Prodigal Prophet. Perry Mason finds himself in a most unusual role, that of a star witness for the prosecution. Again, more guests. A lot of guests here. Again, I see 4. Brett Summers is back as Gertrude Lade. But we have Laura Lee, played by Beverly Garland, Hollywood legend. We've talked about her a few times. Playing Christopher Baxter is Richard Hatch, not the one from Survivor, the one from Battlestar Galactica. Playing Dory Strong is Dana Elcar, another name we've talked about quite a few times in the past.
He was on MacGyver.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say he was on 126 episodes of MacGyver. Bingo. And playing Julie Potter is Candy Clark, maybe better known as a movie actress. She was in American Graffiti, so she was actually kind of busy at this time because that was 1973. And she's done all sorts of stuff over the last, 50 plus years at this point, because I just said American Graffiti was 1973. Episode 3 is titled The Case of the Ominous Oath. OATH, not OAF. No, I think that'd be funny. Chico, by chance, do you have a summary for this episode?
A mechanic is defended by Mason in his retrial for the murder of a prominent physician. The first trial ended in a hung jury that voted 11-1 to convict.
Again, we have about 4 names on this episode. Playing David Rainey is Jed Allen. You'd know him from the stories back in the day. But also, as we've talked about in the past, he hosted Celebrity Bowling. And what was the one episode of Celebrity Bowling that you mentioned, Greg, that we had to watch? There was one that you're like, oh, this is like the best episode of Celebrity Bowling ever.
Oh, there was an episode of Celebrity Bowling where Ernest Borgnine was teamed with Michelle Lee.
I thought, honestly, it was a Celebrity Bowling episode where Billy Barty played. Because I think Billy Barty... Yeah, there was an episode where Billy Barty played. Yes. I want to see Billy Barty bowl.
Oh, wait. I remember the episode. It was the Brady Bunch episode with Chris Knight and Eve Plum. Remember, Cheek? The Brady Bunch episode of Celebrity Bowling?
I'm trying to forget it, but yeah, I totally remember it.
Yes.
Was that the one where there was an absolutely abysmal score, in the 50s or 60s?
Yeah.
And then somebody, just in the last 2 or 3 weeks, mentioned that one time on Celebrity Bowling, the car ended up being won. I forget who the celebrities were, but they bowled something not even joking, a 265.
Ooh.
And the thing is, I think to win the car, you only had to get 210.
Oh.
So they overcompensated for something there. I'll have to figure out what episode that was, but again, that was just brought to my attention. Yeah?
Hold on, Chico's got something.
Okay.
It is the team of Michael Cole and Tyg Andrews on episode 70, season 2, episode 3, who scored a 266.
Wait a second, Chico. Michael Cole, the WWE announcer, traveled back in time to compete on Celebrity Bowling?
No.
Oh.
Like I said, I just heard about that a couple of weeks ago. And actually, now when you said Ty Andrews, it's okay, I remember his name coming up as part of the team that had that. You said 266. It wasn't even 265, 266. That's amazing. But we still do have a couple more guest stars in this episode. Playing Mrs. Ballinger is Joanna Barnes.
Oh.
You might remember her from Parent Trap back in 1961, but also The Parent Trap in 1998, where she may have been playing the same character, but with different last names. May have gotten married in the interim. She played Vicki Robinson in the original and Vicki Blake in the new version.
And kind of timely, since at the time of we're recording this, it is opening day for Freakier Friday, which also has Lindsay Lohan in it.
Which looks interesting, but not interesting enough to get me to a movie theater. Hey, I'm sorry. I can only go to a movie theater once every 20 years. I played that card 20 years ago when I took my girlfriend at the time to go see Constantine, and that sucked balls. And then I did it last weekend to go see The Naked Gun. And of course, if I mention The Naked Gun, I need to mention Dramatic Beaver. Da, 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 da.
Getting my sister to see The Naked Gun tomorrow, and you know what the hook was?
Don't say the beaver.
It was not the beaver. It was Lamar, the People's Movie Critic, on the Bob and Sherry Show, giving it 5 out of 6 buds, which is pretty high.
Only 5?
5 out of 6 buds.
Okay, but only 5. What type of movie gets 6 then?
You know what type of movie gets 6 buds? If it was played at the Tokyo Dome, there was a screening there.
That gets a case of 12, Greg.
Oh, that's right. Dave Meltzer would overrate it 12 buds if it was a screening at the Tokyo Dome.
I don't want to spoil anything, and I won't spoil anything, but seriously, I was laughing throughout that movie. I think I laughed more than I did at the original Naked Gun, albeit I was only 13 at the time, and probably 90% of the innuendos went way over my head because I was raised as an innocent little lad. But seriously, there are so many subtle sight gags and throwbacks to the original Naked Gun and Police Squad. If you're a fan, I'm sorry, that should be like 12 out of 6 buds. No, wait, what the heck's a bud?
Budweiser.
Well, that doesn't necessarily make it a good thing. You think that the more buds, you're trying to erase the memory of what happened. So wouldn't it be 1 bud because you're not getting sloshed off your ass trying to forget this movie?
No, it would be 5 buds because you're drinking it and enjoying yourself. If it was a really bad movie, you know what the People's Movie Critic would give it? A warm, flat Zima.
Is it 1996? A warm, flat Zima?
I would have thought it'd be like an old Duels or something. That's what I would have given Megalopolis.
Just from your pal Mike, go see The Naked Gun.
Okay.
I can't wait to go see it again. I'm actually thinking about going down to an AMC theater to get the Siren Cup, but unfortunately, the only AMC around here, or the closest AMC, is like 20 miles away, and I'm not going there just for a stupid cup. At least I got my beaver. This was worth it right here. And I think I shared the story with Greg and Chico when I got the beaver, and I'm actually holding the beaver popcorn bucket right here. When I went to get the beaver popcorn bucket, I bought my ticket at that time, and I said, "Can I get one of the beaver popcorn buckets?" And the guy looks at me like, "What the heck are you talking about?" And then one of his coworkers comes over and says, "It's the special bucket for The Naked Gun." And I just felt so weird for asking a grown adult male, "Can you give me a beaver?" But it's so adorable. Look at it.
I'm looking at it. It is really cute.
It's adorable. Plus, also, I love that on the log, it's leading on a log here. It has The Naked Gun. You probably can't see it there, but it has The Naked Gun there. And then on the other side of the log, I got to flip it this way so you can see it right side up. It says, "Nice beaver." I don't know why I spent almost $40 on that stupid thing, but it's worth every penny.
I could buy one of those and Kiesel would have me committed, I swear.
No, you are a real fan if you get one of these, okay? When I went to go see the movie on that first night on Thursday, the 31st of July, I think I saw 1 or 2 other people with the beaver bucket, and you know what? We bonded after the movie was done because I saw them come down with their beaver bucket, and I'm like, "Yeah, beaver bucket!" And she's like, "Yeah, you got yours." And it's like, damn right, real Naked Gun fans, they get a beaver bucket. And that was how Mike blew money last week. Let's go on to more people in this episode, because we do have 2 more names. Playing Frank Emmett is Simon Oakland. We have definitely talked about him in the past. We talked about him on an episode of Tucker's Witch. We talked about him for the entire series of David Cassidy Man Undercover, which I stupidly thought was a reality series from like 15 years ago. Well, it sounds like a reality series. David Cassidy Man Undercover. Yeah, he's sort of like doing undercover boss, but it's David friggin' Cassidy. He was also Major General or Brigadier General Thomas More on Black Sheep Squadron, which I think is one of those shows that we got to put on the list one day. He was also Tony Vincenzo on Kolchak the Night Stalker. So, needless to say, we've talked about him plenty. And then finally, playing Harlow Dawson is Leonard Stone. And I'm not going to screw this name up, guys. He was Mr. Beauregard on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Not that ripoff with Johnny Depp from like 2005, and sadly not the one with Timothy Chalamet from like last year.
Yeah, that one was nice and sexy.
And it has absolutely nothing to do with Timothy Chalamet. It is just a nice and sexy movie. That will take us to episode 4 called The Case of the Wistful Widower. Jerry Strand convinces Hank Carroll to switch identities with him. Hank finds a bundle of money in Strand's car and goes after him. But Hank's car is a flaming wreck and the world thinks he is dead. He goes to Perry Mason for help. Again, we've got 3 names of note in this episode. Playing Hank Carroll is Bruce Kirby. Maybe you wouldn't know him for any singular role, but he's the father of Bruno Kirby. And then we have playing Jerry Strand, the character I mentioned earlier, is Donnelly Rhodes. We got to put him in the hall at this point. We just talked about him a couple weeks ago. What else was he on? Don't say Soap because that's where I know him from. But he was on what comedy series?
Double Trouble.
Double Trouble. I wanted to say It's Your Move, but I knew that was David Garrison. Yeah. I knew it was one of those goofy comedies from like 40 years ago. But also, like I said, I thought we just talked about him reasonably recently. Maybe in a guest role, but still possibly somebody to put in the hall next year because he's definitely worthy of it. And actually, since we just talked about Soap, because Donnelly Rhodes played Dutch on Soap, playing in an uncredited role, a character named Joe, is Arthur Peterson, the Major from Soap.
Oh, that's terrific. I love the Major.
I don't think we've ever talked about the Major on anything besides Soap. I think he was our last missing piece to the Soap universe. And I can't believe he's uncredited. His career goes back to 1948. It seems if it was uncredited, he would have probably been new to acting at that point, but alas, no. He had a 25-year career at that point. But that's great. The Major. That is so fulfilling. Episode 5 is titled The Case of the Telltale Trunk. The body of a millionaire shows up in Hong Kong after being missing for 4 years. Mason agrees to defend the man who admits to planning the deceased's murder, but denies involvement in the death. Again, 1, 2, 3 guests of note. 4 guests of note. So it seems like we're getting 4 people of note in every episode, or at least 3. And we got 4 in this case. Playing Ray Norman is Richard Anderson. We've talked about him a number of times. He was on The $6 Million Man. He played Oscar Goldman. He was also the narrator on Kung Fu: The Legend Continues. And also, I've mentioned in the past, he had cards in Americana. I think it was the second series of Americana. And somewhere in my collection, right behind me, I know I have a Richard Anderson autograph card. Playing Jennifer Fielding in this episode is Marianne Mobley. What else do we really need to say? Marianne Mobley has done so much. Okay, nobody wants to mention Different Strokes. That's fine. Playing Wong, uncredited, is James Hong. And I know we've talked about him quite a bit. He voiced Mr. Ping in the Kung Fu Panda series.
Among others.
Oh, yes, but We've definitely talked about him as a guest on other episodes. But I purposely saved the best for last. Pay attention, Greg. Playing Victor Harding, the one and only Keenan Wynn.
Oh, yes, Keenan went. Because as we all know, he invented the super trade.
And
And he was also the dick in a lot of Disney movies as Alonzo P. Hawk. He was the ultimate heel in the 1960s and 70s in Disney movies.
episode 6 is The Case of the Deadly Deeds. Mason's client, big-time gambler Dan Haynes, is accused of murder. Mason and his team must craft a defense at the same time as trying to win a custody fight concerning Dan's daughter, Hildy. Only 2 names of note this time, but 2 pretty good names. Playing Stephen Elder is David Huddleston, the Big Lebowski, another name that we've talked about numerous times in the past. But, the person who played Hildy Haynes, the daughter of this gambler, yeah, she's a pretty big name. Hildy Haynes is played by Jodie Foster.
I believe she won an Oscar for something.
Just one? No, actually, IMDb says 2.
All right, she won 2 Oscars for something.
1989, she won for Best Actress in a Leading Role in The Accused. But I don't think that's the one you're thinking of. I think the one that you're thinking of, what was the one that she won in like 1980? The one that made the guy who tried to kill Reagan go crazy.
Taxi Driver, she was only nominated.
No. That was 76. I thought like around 1980 she won something. 1978. Best Actor. Oh, no, that's the wrong damn thing. I thought 1992. Duh. The Silence of the Lambs. But still, that was the one that made Mark David Richmond. He lusted a little bit too much for Jodie Foster.
That's Mark David Chapman.
Mark David Chapman, Mark Chapman, Rex Chapman. Who the hell cares? Apologies to Rex Chapman.
No, Rex Chapman doesn't deserve that.
Rex Chapman was a darn fine basketball player back in the day. And also, he is, I don't want to say an influencer, but he is I shouldn't say is a pretty good follow. Was a pretty good follow on Twitter back in the day. I don't know if he's still there. Gosh, I hope he's not.
I think we've proven that out-and-out influencers are, by and large, rubbish people.
Repeat that for the people in the back because you're absolutely right.
If you list influencer as your main mode of getting paid as an occupation, you are a rubbish person.
I take it a step further. If you have influencer as your job title, that just means you're unemployed. Prove me wrong.
I should note that Mark David Chapman, as we know, was the assassin of John Lennon, but the attempted assassin of Ronald Reagan was actually John Hinckley Jr. That was John Hinckley Jr. Please don't send us emails or comments in the Facebook page. We know.
While you try doing that, let's go to episode 7, The Case of the Murdered Murderer. Perry Mason is hard-pressed to prove the innocence of his client, a brilliant inventor, when he is discovered standing over a dead man with a knife in his hand.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah?
You brought up one person from the $6 Million Man.
Okay.
There's the other person from the $6 Million Man, Martin E. Brooks, playing Nate Morrissey.
The only name I was going to mention before Chico said that was portraying Pat Morrissey, who I'm going to guess is the wife of the aforementioned Nate Morrissey, is Sharon Farrell. She was a fixture in the soap world back in like the 70s and 80s. But also, she was on the first week of Match Game in 1978, so obviously Match Game 78, where they incorporated the Star Wheel. I know a little bit too much about Match Game. When they first spun the Star Wheel, the first go around, and the Star Wheel landed on Richard, everybody on stage left because the reason that the Star Wheel was brought aboard was because everybody kept on picking Richard, and so they wanted a little variety. And the first spin of that darn wheel lands on Richard. Everybody leaves except Sharon Farrell. She's like, "What's going on? Where's everybody going? Oh, come on back, guys. We're playing a game." She totally didn't get it. And yes, my Sharon Farrell impersonation sounds just like Tom Poston.
I was gonna say your version kind of is very Kitty Carlisle on that one episode of The Simpsons. Come on, everybody, let's play the game.
Vivacious head of Kitty Carlisle. Oh my gosh. We did acknowledge it last week, a couple of episodes ago, but Match Game 2034 celebrity panelist Lonnie Anderson did pass away about a week ago at the time we're recording. We got to make sure nothing happens to Billy Crystal and the I Didn't Do It boy. And Spike Lee. Don't forget about him. That will take us to episode 8, which is titled The Case of the Furious Father. Lieutenant Tragg finds himself working both sides of a murder case when he is forced to arrest Detective Dave Cook for murder, and then asks Mason to give the man the best defense possible. Playing Lucas Dawes in this episode is Pat Harrington Jr. Give him a couple of years and he'll be Schneider on One Day at a Time. We also have playing Dr. John Kenyon, Edward Winter, and we have definitely talked about him in the past. He was on MASH. He did voices for shows like The Angry Beavers, Real Monsters. Oh, I know I didn't say that right, but Real Monsters, Duckman. We love our Duckman around here. Herman's Head. Needless to say, one of those people who had a very long career. Brett Summers is back as Gertrude Lade in this episode, albeit uncredited. Going on to episode 9, which is called The Case of the Cagey Cager. Harry refuses to press charges against college basketball star Randy Marlowe after the young man is arrested for breaking into the lawyer's car and stealing a radio. He winds up defending the Cagey Cager in court on a murder charge, the victim being a duplicitous sports agent. The person who played the Cagey Cager is Bill Overton, not somebody necessarily of note. He only has 22 acting roles to his name on IMDb, the last of which was in 2002 in a video called On the Edge. But taking a look here, it seems like he may have been stereotyped kind of sort of as an athlete, because I see in the TV movie Cover Girls from 1977, he played a football player. He played basketball in this episode. And, hold on a second. Remember the name, Bill Overton? Guess who he is married to, or is married to? Still married after over 40 years. One of our faves. From the city where I live.
Jane Kennedy?
Bingo.
Who else is from your hometown that is a celebrity?
That was purposely meant to give it away, Greg.
Oh.
I don't think anybody's really well known from being from here. I think the best we could do is not somebody who is from the city where I live, but Joe Juravicius just opened up some business not that far away from here.
Ooh!
I sort of got the vibe that I get an ooh from you because Joe Juravicius owned some sort of, I think, a fabric business. Because I remember he had one closer to downtown Cleveland, and that actually caught fire maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh.
So I'm guessing he rebuilt it in Wycliffe, Ohio.
Okay. By the way, speaking of Jane Kennedy, I need to mention we want to congratulate Brent Musburger on his induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in the media class.
Very nice. And actually, talking about Jane Kennedy Overton, she was in town, may still be in town now in Cleveland, because she was being saluted by the, I don't know if you want to call it convention, Congress, the annual meeting of black journalists was happening in Cleveland. And I know she was doing a special reading of her memoir, which was released, I believe, earlier this year, maybe last year. And dang it, she never responded to say, hey, I'm also going to do a book signing in Cleveland, because I would be in that book signing in a heartbeat. Getting back to the episode, though, we do have Brett Summers returning as Gertrude Lade, but we have a name as a TV announcer. And if you're talking about a TV announcer for basketball games, this is a pretty good guy to get. Chick Hearn, legendary LA Lakers announcer. Episode 10 is called The Case of the Jail Justice. A Los Angeles judge with a reputation for being tough is arrested for poisoning his wheeler dealer son-in-law and then tries to tell Mason how to conduct his defense. Don't tell Perry Mason what to do. He's done pretty darn well over the years. Again, we got two names, or at least one name, and this judge, Judge Foster Daniels, is played by Andrew Duggan. Andrew Duggan, just like many people in this episode, did a little bit of everything up until his passing in 1988.
Now I got a question, Mike. Is he related to Hacksaw Jim Duggan?
What if I said yes?
I know you're bullshitting because it probably is a joke.
Well, I'm checking, but I just want to know what your reaction would be if the answer to that is affirmative.
Is it affirmative?
He is 6'5", so I really wouldn't doubt if he's related to Hacksaw Jim Duggan. No, I don't see any sort of Hacksaw Duggan or Jim Duggan or Hacksaw Jim Duggan among his children.
Oh, among his children.
Well, he had 3 kids, yes.
Okay. Did he have 3 wives like Victor Garber on that show? You could add 1 wife for 1 different kid?
He had 1 wife from 1953 until his death in 1988.
Okay.
That was a real stretch. Did he have 3 wives? I don't know where the hell that came from.
Well, he had 3 kids. That's why he said.
Yeah, because each wife could only have 1 kid. That's just the way the world works. Moving on fast, the other name, somebody who we've talked about a ton, playing Tom Heater, is Clu Gulager. Clu Gulager is one of those people that we've talked about quite a bit. I know his name has come up a couple of times, but also I know I've seen his name come up quite a few times on Quinn Martin shows. That's going to take us to episode number 11. And the name of that episode is The Case of the Spurious Spouse. Perry Mason encounters bigamy and blackmail in the midst of a political campaign. Don't make a Mr. Black joke here. Don't make a Mr. Black joke here. Don't make a Mr. Black joke here. Playing Spencer Phillips in this episode is Alan Oppenheimer. Good heavens, what have we talked about him on? Actually, a better question is probably, what haven't we talked about him on? He's on seemingly everything. And we have a returning actor, but not a returning character. Ponder that. Playing someone called Nikon's brother, and there's a character named Nikon. I don't think she's anybody of note. Is James Hong once again. This is the second time he's been on with the second character. And the person who plays Nikon, not really a known actress. So we're going to move on to episode 12, which is titled The Case of the Frenzied Feminist. A glamorous and provocative magazine editor, Marion, is accused of killing her boss after he gave a plum job to another woman. Harry agrees to take the troublesome case of defending her. Playing that spurned magazine editor, Marion Ryan, how about Carolyn Jones, Morticia Adams?
And it's timely because Wednesday season 2 just premiered on Netflix.
We have a couple more names besides Carolyn Jones. Playing Newton Vance in this episode is Lloyd Bachner. Again, I know we've talked about him previously, but he's been on A little bit of everything, it seems. Actually, where I think we may have talked about him is when we covered every guest star ever on Hotel, because it says he was on 3 episodes of Hotel. And also, he played Cecil Colby on Dynasty. Looks like first season, 81 to 82. In this episode, we also have a character named Calvin Ryan, played by David Hedison. Again, somebody we have talked about with somewhat frequency. You may know him from your stories. 72 episodes of Another World, 50 episodes of The Young and the Restless. We talked about him on 9 episodes of The Colbys. Definitely somebody with a little bit of popularity. Again, we've mentioned him in the past. That's going to take us to episode 13, which is titled The Case of the Perilous Pen.
After an author who wrote a book exposing the crime of a politician winds up dead, his publisher asks for Mason's help with the case.
Believe it or not, there is really nobody of note in this episode. So that's going to take us to episode 14, which is titled The Case of the Tortured Titan. A chance meeting with a beautiful young girl leads Perry to become her defense attorney when she's arrested for murder. There's a lot of murder in this series. I'll admit I don't watch Perry Mason, the original, that often, but I don't remember there being that many people being murdered on the original Perry Mason. We do have a number of names in this episode. Just 2, it looks like. We'll start off with a cab driver. No name, just a cab driver, played by Gary Wahlberg. Where I know him from is he played Lieutenant Frank Monahan on Quincy, 145 episodes. So he was, well, maybe not the sidekick of, but he worked very closely with Jack Klugman. Oh, remember Jack Klugman, his wife or ex-wife, Brett Summers, is on this series. Or at least 4 episodes of it. But playing Mark Borden, again, another person who I think is making a Hall of Fame case, Ron Glass. The Ron Glass from Barney Miller. We talked about him on Nightstand with Dick Dietrich. And also we talked about him playing the Black Knight in the final episode of When Things Were Rotten. Just an overall legend. And since I'm sure Chico's going to mention it, we did talk about him on The New Odd Couple back in the early 80s. Finally, the last episode, The Case of the Violent Valley. The kidnapping of Mason's young counsel from the courtroom complicates his attempt to gain a fair trial for a man accused of murdering a hated ranch foreman in a rural California town. This guy's got to be the ranch foreman because he seriously looks like a ranch foreman. I don't want to stereotype, but he really does. Denver Pyle. Uncle Jesse. That is 15 episodes. What happened? I think we can probably figure out what happened. The ratings weren't good. People weren't watching. But obviously, we need to dig a little deeper because there has to be a pretty obvious reason why this didn't get past 15 episodes. This didn't even last 6 months, for heaven's sake. The new Perry Mason aired at 7:30 p.m. on Sunday nights. The competition, both of these are pretty good competition. On ABC, you had the FBI, and this would have been second to last season, I believe, because it ended in 74-75.
Correct.
But I don't think you're beating what was on NBC. The Wonderful World of Disney. Kids got to watch their Disney.
Yeah, they want to see Keenan Wynn be all evil and shit.
I knew you were going to say that. I was absolutely awaiting you to say something about Keenan Wynn being on The Wonderful World of Disney, and you did not disappoint one bit. Now I want to go through IMDb and see if Keenan Wynn was on anything between September of 73 and January of 74 on The Wonderful World of Disney. I'm not going to do that, though. And the thing is, outside of The Protectors at 10:30, This is a pretty stacked lineup for CBS. At 8:30, you had Mannix. Again, this is probably last season, second to last season. I don't think Mannix got past 75. But then 9:30 to 10:30, Barnaby Jones, and this would have been first season, if not the first season, the second season of Barnaby Jones. I think it started later in 72, 73, but this is definitely the first full season of Barnaby Jones. Now, if we take a look at the numbers, I don't have individual weeks ratings, but what I do have is I have the season numbers. There were 80 shows, 80 series, according to the ratings for 1973-74. Does anybody want to take a guess as to where the new Perry Mason landed?
71.
Greg, I'm not even going to ask you for an answer because that's the answer. 71st. I don't know if you researched it before I asked the question, but yes, it ended up 71st out of 80 shows, and everything else from that year below that was canceled. Love American Style, Partridge Family, Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, and a show that I absolutely want to cover one day because there's a great story about why the show ended up canceled, or at least one of the reasons it may have been canceled. Rollout. And it's a great story. And Greg, I'm sure you've heard it because it's been mentioned on Gilbert Gottfried's podcast. It's a great story involving Ivan Dixon and Alan Hale Jr. I think Greg just fainted because I mentioned Ivan Dixon from Hogan's Heroes and Alan Hale Jr., the skipper.
Skipper!
If you're looking online for the new Perry Mason, I've got somewhat good news. From what I can tell, most of the episodes are on YouTube. At least 13 of the 15 episodes. So please, feel free to look for it. Make your own determination as to whether it's a decent show. It's not going to be as good as the original. I thought it was okay. But I think viewers were just used to Raymond Burr, and they just couldn't get used to Monty Markham playing Perry Mason. Maybe it's just too fresh in people's minds, even though at this point it had been off the air for 7 years. Maybe you just need to wait a little longer, not unlike what HBO did, where they brought back Perry Mason just a few years ago. And really before that, when was the last time they did Perry Mason? I'm thinking the movies that Raymond Burr did as Perry Mason back in the 80s. So maybe 25, 30 years is a fair amount of time for people to get Perry Mason out of their memory, and then you see a new version. I don't know. Just speculation there. What can we say about the new Perry Mason? It didn't have Raymond Burr. I really think that's what killed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The writing, the characters, they're true to Earl Stanley Gardner's works. Maybe the competition wasn't good going against the FBI and the Wonderful World of Disney, but in the end, Perry Mason, his show got acquitted and it just became a thing on TV. You can find us at our website, itwasthathingontv.com, on Facebook at It Was a Thing on TV podcast, and elsewhere at It Was a Thing on TV. You can find us on any podcast player, and we're also on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with our releases, including what's coming up next time.
We are honoring a fan's request. What happens when the biggest pop star on the planet meets the most beautiful woman in Tennessee? I'll just say it right now. It, for lack of a better phrase, does not end well.
Oh, stop it! No, we were not doing that in unison. Again, this is never scripted, but that is just absolutely epic. How both of us just did,
Oh, the show ain't scripted.
Grab your sequin jumpsuits and your peanut butter and banana sandwiches for the next episode of It Was a Thing on TV. For the Colonel, Greg, and for my assistant, Mike, this is the King saying, don't be cruel.
and don't shoot your TV.
Wow. Oh.
I know it's 3 o'clock in the morning, but I can't sleep. Well, you're my doctor, aren't you?
Sometimes the old-fashioned remedies seem to work best, Mr. Hawk. Have you ever tried counting sheep?
Sheep!
Picture in your mind's eye a grassy green meadow, a whitewashed three-rail fence, and a flock of sweet little sheep. They begin to jump over the fence. 1 sheep.
6 sheep? 7 sheep? 8 sheep? 9 sheep? 10.
I got a question. How the hell did Keenan Wynn get on top of the Empire State Building? How did he climb the fuck
No, I'm
up?
not answering it because that's just too damn funny.